Joining me on this live edition of TelecomTV's Main Agenda are Charlie Ashton from Wind River and Angela Whiteford from Affirmed Networks. Charlie and Angela, good to see you both again, and thanks for joining us today. We're going to talk about what you have learned through working with service providers that can be leveraged across the market. But first, what's the current state of NFV? Has the original brief been met? Are deployments on track? And have there been any unforeseen challenges? Angela.
Thank you, Guy. We are seeing that all major operators are scaling their deployments. They have moved past the trial and the proof of concept stage. Many operators, what we see is that when they start with a particular application or segment of the network in mind. This could be enterprise broadband services, IoT services, MVNO wholesale services, or straight to consumer services like we use every day. From that point, they then expand throughout the network. We would love to see these expansions be going faster, and I think some of the challenges around that are organizational readiness, designing, supporting, and maintaining this new infrastructure that used to be one hardware-based platform and is now broken up into three components: the hardware, the hypervisor, and the application itself. And that requires a new skill set.
And Charlie, what's the state of NFV today?
Guy, I think it's worth mentioning that there's a big difference between network virtualization and the typical understanding of what's meant by NFV. You know, service providers have been virtualizing network functions for years, wherever it makes business sense to do so. But they're not necessarily implementing the overall architecture that was originally developed by Etsy, because that may be more complex than what they require for their specific application.
One of the selling points of NFV was that it would generate operational savings for telcos. So why aren't we hearing more about these savings? Have they actually yet materialized, Angela?
You know, they're definitely seeing savings, but they could be seeing a lot more. And this really goes back to the point that Charlie just mentioned. For example, applications like a mobile packet core, they need the underlying network or the data center design to be designed for high performance, for packet forwarding applications. And many NFVI designs that we've seen are actually stranding capacity, which is in complete conflict of the goals that operators have of driving down the cost per bit delivered on their network. That's one of their key KPIs. So what is happening is that applications, again, I can speak to a VEPC application, there's tons of CPU headroom, but they're being stranded by the NIC, the network interface capacity, on the infrastructure, on the NFVI infrastructure. So you actually have a lot of headroom from a processing and application processing standpoint, but you're being starved on the NIC side. Another area that's really important in terms of savings and improving performance is around architectures that support multiple capabilities. So you're not duplicating functions. And examples of this would include things like supporting integrated DPI, integrated GI LAN services, or virtual probes that are co-located with the VNF itself. By not duplicating functions, again, you're lowering the cost and actually improving the overall performance of the application.
And Charlie, I've seen the cost savings materialize, and also, you know, what about top line growth?
Yeah, I think it's very important to remember that the other premise when NFV was first discussed was that it would boost the top-line revenue for the service providers by enabling them to accelerate the introduction of new services that delivered new value to both enterprise customers and consumers. I think that's why we're seeing carriers start to investigate applications like industrial IoT, which enable them to sell new kinds of services to new kinds of customers. And then as they evaluate these new kinds of applications, it's really important that the VNFs can be optimally tuned and optimally scaled for those use cases.
Okay, so it's probably worth taking a bit of time here to look at, you know, the telco revenue model, i.e. revenue versus cost versus volume. Telco revenue models are producing less revenue per bit, but it seems that volumes of revenue are not offsetting these cost increases, so something obviously has to give. Is it down to much greater cost reductions, and what level of reduction in TCO could telcos expect? Charlie?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked about that, because at Wind River, we've put a big focus on modeling the total cost of ownership, TCO benefits, that can be achieved by different types of software infrastructure platforms running applications like the Affirmed virtual EPC. We've actually developed a tool that allows our customers, the service providers, to model their specific use cases. And we've seen scenarios where service providers have used this tool to project that they could save $4 or $5 billion in cost over a 5-year period by running the virtual EPC on the Titanium Cloud virtualization platform rather than on either a commercial IT class platform or maybe one that they develop themselves using a roll-your-own approach, so that the cost savings can be very, very significant and can mount up to billions of dollars over the period that they're modeling.
And Angela, do you want to add your insight to this as well?
Sure, absolutely. I think 2 other key areas of focus are really important here, and that is around automation and analytics. Today, many operators are rolling out 3 to 4 new services a year, and this is typically very time-consuming and a very manual process. They need to be moving to a model where they're rolling 10x the amount of services of what they're doing right now. I mean, this is typically their over-the-top competition. That's what they're doing. Using real-time analytics to validate how a service is doing, changes that you need to make. Maybe potentially the service isn't working at all and you need to start over, so the fail-fast concept. But being able to automate the provisioning of new services and using the real-time analytics to tweak and improve the service is critical. And now with virtualization, you have the underlying infrastructure that allows you to do that.
How can Affirmed and Wind River help? Angela, from Affirmed, how can Affirmed help?
Thank you. So from an Affirmed perspective, we offer a suite of VNFs that have all been pre-tested and integrated, as Charlie and I discussed earlier. And one of the important things is, as you're making the transition to an NFV-based architecture, you want to have the capabilities in place to do so. So I mentioned earlier this concept of virtual probes. You see a V on every one of our VNFs in this slide. Having an integrated probe is critical when you move to virtualized functions because your VMs are moving. There's no real demarcation point anymore. So how do you get network performance and analytics in real time? Co-locating probes are going to be very important. Operators are looking at the horizon of 5G. Do you have an architecture that supports the transition from wherever you are, 2G, 3G, 4G, all the way to 5G in a seamless manner? And having an architecture and a partner that provides those VNFs are important. And then again, the underlying infrastructure with Titanium Cloud that ensures that you have the reliability and the performance with capabilities such as an accelerated vSwitch to hit the metrics that operators are looking for. And to underline all of that, this solution that we're showcasing here has been validated in real customer environments, and that's important as well. There are many vendors out there that will put up a nice chart of all these different logos. For Wind River and Affirmed, these are all real deployments.
Thanks, Angela. And Charlie, how can Wind River help telcos?
Well, obviously I echo all the comments that Angela just made there. I think what's important is that from a business point of view, the collaboration between Wind River and Affirmed is really all about reducing the risk and accelerating the schedule for service providers who want to deploy a virtual EPC function with the confidence that it's going to run with telco-grade uptime and also that it's going to be cost-effective thanks to the level of performance that it delivers. So that's what our collaboration is all about, and that's really the bottom line benefit that it's delivering to service providers around the world.
That's really good to hear. Thank you, Charlie, and thank you, Angela. Well, we've unfortunately come to the end of our programme. It just remains me to thank my guests today, Charlie Ashton and Angela Whiteford. We appreciate your input and valuable insights. And also to thank Wind River for sponsoring today's programme. From all of us here at TelecomTV, thanks for watching and goodbye.